Ever wondered what signs might hint at a looming war? It's a question that has puzzled humanity since the dawn of conflict, and the answer lies in the subtle art of war preparation. It's about reading between the lines, interpreting the quiet before the storm. Nations mobilize, they prepare, and their actions paint a picture if we are vigilant enough to see it. Let's focus on 5 nations that have been in the limelight recently: Russia, China, Iran, Israel, and the United States. Each has its unique circumstances, each its own set of tactics. From Russia's calculated moves in Ukraine to China's strategic assertiveness in Taiwan, from Iran's shadow play in Syria and Lebanon to Israel's discreet military build-up in response to Iranian tensions, and the United States' role as both a participant and observer. These nations' actions are not just chess pieces moving on a global board. They are warning signs, indicators of what could be a devastating conflict. Recognizing these signs is not just for the military enthusiasts, but for everyone who values peace. The call to arms of reserve forces is a clear alarm bell. When a nation begins to mobilize its reserve forces, it's a strong indicator that war is on the horizon. It's akin to a boxer putting on his gloves, readying himself for the fight. Consider Russia's actions in Ukraine in 2022. With tensions escalating, Russia called up its reserve forces, a move akin to a chess player positioning his pieces for a strategic attack. It was a clear sign of preparation for conflict, a significant red flag for those watching the global stage. Then there's China. Amid rising tensions with Taiwan in the same year, China began mobilizing its reserves. This action, much like Russia's, signaled a clear intent to boost military readiness. The nation was not merely flexing its muscles, but preparing for possible conflict. Remember, the mobilization of reserve forces is not a casual decision. It requires resources, planning, and intent. It's a nation's way of saying, we are ready to fight if necessary. So when you hear about countries calling up their reserves, pay attention. The sound of boots marching is a sound that precedes war. When nations start moving their chess pieces forward, a game is about to begin. Forward deployment of forces is a major indicator of war preparations. It's like a boxer stepping into the ring, gloves on and ready for the bell. We've seen this ring strategy with Russia in Ukraine around 2022. They shifted personnel and equipment right to the potential combat zones. It's a clear sign, a statement of intent. But there's another side to this coin: surging weapons, production and stockpiling. A nation at peace doesn't need a war stockpile, but a nation preparing for conflict, they ramp up production. Israel, amidst tensions with Iran and China in their quest for military modernization, have both shown us how it's done. And then there's Iran, making their moves in Syria and Lebanon. Like a chess player, moving their pieces, setting the board for the game ahead. It's not just about soldiers on the ground, it's about who has the bigger arsenal, who's got their pieces in the right places. The accumulation of arms and soldiers on borders is a harbinger of conflict. It's a sign, a warning. And it's our job to read these signs, to understand the game that's being played. As the seas churn with warships and the airwaves with propaganda, conflict is on the horizon. Nations preparing for maritime conflicts often concentrate their naval assets in strategic areas. China, for instance, has been known to deploy its naval forces in the contentious South China Sea, while Iran has done something similar in the strategic Strait of Hormuz. These are clear signs of nations bracing for potential naval warfare. But it's not just about the movement of warships. The airwaves too play a critical role. Bellicose rhetoric and propaganda are potent tools used by nations to prime their populations for war. Take Russia's actions during the Ukraine crisis in 2022 or China's persistent anti-Western narratives. These are not just words, but psychological preparations for potential conflict. It's a dual strategy. On one hand, it's about physical readiness, positioning naval forces to quickly respond to maritime conflicts. On the other hand, it's about mental readiness, using propaganda to prepare the populace for the possibility of war. When the waves are filled with steel and the air with words of war, the storm is near. But what about the signs that are not so obvious? There are often subtle warning signs that can also indicate war preparations. For instance, recalling diplomats can signal a breakdown in relations, as seen between the United States and China. Similarly, stockpiling strategic resources for self-sufficiency, as China has done, can be another indication. There's also the matter of increasing intelligence gathering and espionage activities. It's no secret that countries like Russia, China and Iran have been known to step up their intelligence operations in times of tension. Conducting civil defense drills and exercises is another less obvious sign. Israel and South Korea, for example, regularly carry out such exercises to ensure readiness for any potential conflict. Let's not forget the strengthening of alliances and partnerships, such as those between China and Russia or Iran. These alliances often serve as a protective measure against perceived threats. Economic measures against rivals, as seen between the US and China or US and Iran, can also be a significant indication of brewing conflict. In conclusion, detecting war preparations requires analyzing a wide range of indicators, from overt signs like mobilizing reserve forces and surging weapons production, to less obvious ones like strengthening alliances and enacting economic measures. To anticipate war, we must read the signs. Vigilance is our shield and knowledge our weapon.